Hi everyone, this is the last video I'll do on the Wheelie Bin Grim Reaper prop. I've gone and mounted the prop controller board and relay board and RF board, those three there. They're in DIN rail type trays, so I've got a piece of DIN rail and I've got this food container box that I just got from Kmart. They're only like $1 or something like that, or 3 for $2 or something. They're very cheap. And I've got that, the DC converter just screwed to a piece of wood, and then that piece of wood is screwed through the back of the bin. That way I've only got 2 holes at the back of the bin, and I can do whatever I want here later on. If I change the whole thing around, I'll just reuse those original 2 holes for that piece of wood, and that way I'm not drilling lots of holes in the back of the bin and making Swiss cheese out of it. There's the linear actuator. That's 230 millimeters per second, 12 volts. It pulls probably about 4 or 5 amps when it's lifting the lid. So that's a 6 amp output DC converter. So between driving the linear actuator and that lamp there, and I've also put an output on the back of it just to drive another small load there, another conventional lamp that stays on all the time. Between driving all of those, it's pretty much using up the total capacity of that regulator. So I'll show in a minute how it all works, show it running and what the current draw is, the various spots. That Reaper prop, I just basically have him attached to the top. It already had a metal bar sort of coming up through the guts of it and up to the head and curled over, so I've just, where that's looped over, I've just put a cable tie through there and put a P-clamp to the top of the lid and just screwed it through. And it required some experimentation to work out how far back to put it so that it was sort of as high as it could go, which obviously the closer towards the lid you make it, the higher the overall prop's going to be when it's in the up position. But the only trouble is there is you need to allow for when that swings, the lid swings down, then the front face of the prop and the hands, etc., got a contact around there. So I've put the light a fair way down. That way the hands tend to go, I've sort of got them just at the side there now, but when it's just before I deploy it, I sort of bend the hands out so they sort of just scrape the sides, so that it tends to center the prop automatically. So if it proves to be a problem long term, I might add a little elastic string or something like that to it, just to keep it straight, keep it moving up and down in the correct orientation. So I'll come back in a minute and we'll show the power draw, etc. Okay, so I've got my little power meter hooked in series. There's my 24 volt power supply over there coming out into the power meter. That's one they sort of sell for hobby use, but it's quite handy for this hobby as well. It's normally meant for RC cars, etc., I guess, but it tells you the current draw and what it's currently doing. So the voltage there, the current draw and the effective wattage. I think it toggles between the maximum and the current figures all the time. So that's feeding 24 volts into the prop, so it's actually putting out 26 and a bit volts from the power supply. So that's okay, that 24 volt converter can handle that. So we'll trigger the prop. So there's the lamp, there's the prop controller board working there. So I'll have to reorganise those hands in a minute. So that lamp stays on all the time. That's just to provide some general scene illumination. That way I don't need to run a separate 12 volt line just to run a small lamp like that. So, but yeah, overall it's working quite good. And the linear actuator doesn't draw as much current on the way back down because it's just got gravity pulling it down as well, helping it along, so it draws a fraction of the current coming back down. But just keep that in mind, that they can draw a fair bit of current. But overall, that hasn't been too hard a prop to make. The controller board's made it easier, and see how you go. If you've got any questions, put it in the comments and I'll try and help you out.